This is the Young Architect Podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to empowering and helping the next generation of architects become more successful. Now, let's get into today's show with your host, Michael Rasica.
Hey, it's me, Michael Rasica from YoungArchitect.com. So back in 2014, when I was first getting started on Young Architect, I published 2 blog posts called 10 Reasons Why You Should Become an Architect and 10 Reasons Why You Should Not Become an Architect. And while I've been consistently publishing new content for the past couple years since then, no other blog posts have I ever written received as much attention and controversy. These 2 blog posts typically get one of the 2 responses out of people, which are, "Thank you for writing this. You are spot on. This is 100% accurate. I totally agree with what you have to say." Or people say, "What's wrong with you? What are you, an idiot? Why are you so down on the architecture profession? This isn't true. You're stupid. This website sucks." And since these silly little blog posts have stirred such a response amongst the public, I've decided to record them as a podcast. So let's get started. But before we do, I'd like to end this podcast on a high note. So we will start with 10 reasons why you shouldn't become an architect. Are you considering becoming an architect? Architecture is rough. It's definitely not a profession for everyone, or more accurately, everyone who thinks they should be an architect. In fact, architecture can be more of a lifestyle than just a job or a profession. Unfortunately, in many situations, the cards aren't often stacked in the architect's favor. Last week, I gave you 10 reasons why you should become an architect. To keep things balanced, here are 10 wonderful reasons why you should not become an architect. Number 1, the glass is always half empty. This is how architecture is taught. There's always more you could do, things you could try, or ways you could be better. Your project is never done. Many people learn early on that they pour their heart and soul into a project and they have a really hard time dealing with the criticism. One of the keys to getting past this is learning to disassociate from the work. It helps to think that the work has its own life. The work is what's being criticized, not you as a person. It sounds silly, but a lot of architecture students never make it past the first year because of this. Number 2. You're overly excited about telling people you're an architect. Thanks to Ayn Rand, many people outside the profession naturally have a love for the image of an architect. Sure, saying you're an architect can be cool in certain situations every once in a while, but if this is overly important to you, then maybe you shouldn't be an architect. The inglorious moments of working long and hard, being challenged by contractors, plans examiners, difficult clients, will far outnumber the moments when you look cool for being an architect. People who are successful in this profession care much more about doing the work than being recognized for doing it. Becoming an architect should only be pursued if you're truly passionate about the work, and not because you want to look cool at a party. You will actually get to go to more parties if you don't become an architect. 3. The money sucks. Architecture compares terribly in a cost-benefit analysis with other professions. After college, entry-level salaries have always been meager and long hours are required. Most architects don't start seeing decent money until after they've become somewhat experienced, licensed, and accomplished. This generally takes 5 to 10 years after college. I've watched people in other professions work a lot less, with less education, and still make double an architect's salary. Being an architect is just a different lifestyle. Being a poor architect is also very much a mindset. Not every architect is destined to be broke. There are many ways out of it. Figuring out how not to be a poor architect may be your greatest design challenge. The place to start is by studying business, entrepreneurship, and learning how to sell architectural services. Number 4, most architects don't design. The harsh reality of becoming an architect is that you spend many years in college being your own star architect in your imaginary academic bubble. Students design all types of buildings, make all types of executive decisions, and never really face the harsh realities of business, codes, constructability, and the public. After college, graduates carry out the executive decisions of others and work on the production side of the firm rather than the decision-making side. Most architecture graduates spend their entire careers simply implementing the design decisions of others. The positive side to this is that a lot of great learning takes place executing others' designs. By hacking your way through each annoying detail and being in the trenches, you're becoming better prepared for being the one to make executive decisions in your future. Number 5. You stink at math. Architects are constantly doing mental math calculations without a calculator. For instance, what is 5 foot 9 inches plus 6 foot 4 inches plus the width of 3 2x8s? If you already struggle with math and calculations, then you'll be greeted with a never-ending supply of calculus, physics, statics, and general structures. After you finish those classes, you will then go on to study how to calculate beams, floors, and the columns in wood, steel, and concrete. Architects do quick math all day long. If you're not comfortable with math, architecture may not be for you. Oh, and it's 12 foot, 5.5 inches, by the way. Number 6. Hustling is rewarded more than talent. Showing up is frequently 75% the battle. People who are half as talented as you will typically work 3 times as hard just to raise the standard. They will be rewarded, get their buildings built, and frequently outperform you. Architecture is one of the most competitive professions. It starts the second you apply to design school, and it never stops. Many people have tons of creative energy deep inside of them, and that can become unlocked in a competitive environment. Embracing the competition is how many people surprise themselves with what they may be capable of as a designer. Number 7. Don't even think about calling yourself an architect until you fulfill all the licensing requirements. Does anyone want unqualified people building our structures? This is why the licensing process exists. Architectural licensing is long and extensive and highly regulated. It focuses around the understanding and protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Getting a fancy, expensive architecture degree does not allow you to call yourself an architect. It also does not allow you to solicit architectural services to clients. It is illegal in the United States to call yourself an architect until you have met all the requirements and passed the architect registration exam. After college, you can call yourself a designer, an architectural fill-in-the-blank. Pretty much anything flies as long as it is not architect. Architectural staff may practice architecture under the supervision of a licensed architect, who will be the architect of record. If you solicit design services that fall into the realm of architecture, or if you identify yourself as an architect, you could potentially be punished by your state board. Some states are more aggressive than others, and I highly recommend looking up what the limits of providing design services as an unlicensed architect are in your state. There's always a lot of controversy around this topic. After completing the exhaustive process of becoming a licensed architect, I feel very strongly about it. It is very clear how and why these rules exist. Architects carry a tremendous responsibility for protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Identifying yourself as an architect should be protected similarly to calling yourself a doctor, a lawyer, or a police officer. Number 8. You will spend more time thinking like a lawyer than an architect. A stamped set of plans and specifications are considered legal documents, instructing the contractor of the work to be done. A sloppy set of drawings with errors can become an architect's worst self-inflicted nightmare during construction. I've worked with contractors who are highly skilled at finding small errors in architects' drawings and turning those into very expensive change orders for the owner. The drawings and specs will never be perfect. There is also very little room for error. When producing construction drawings, you will spend a lot of time looking at your drawings and specs, trying to avoid the client from being screwed up by the contractor. Very frequently, projects go wrong. Things will mess up. If things didn't go sour, no one would ever learn anything. Learning how to avoid these problems and effectively deal with them is learned by living through troubled projects. Good architects become obsessive, systematic, and methodical with how they craft a set of construction drawings. Number 9. Your good deeds will frequently be punished. At times, the people you are trying to help will fight you because they don't care about your project. Office workers who have been working in the same building for 20 years with no light and air will become your enemy because you move the filing cabinets away from blocking the windows. Your clients will decide not to pay you. Others will take credit for your great ideas. You will bend over backwards for people who do not appreciate it. Contractors will rip off your clients and point the finger at you. You will work very hard on projects and your hard work will go unnoticed. You could work on a project for years that suddenly gets shelved and in the end never gets built. This is normal, and it happens to everyone. The key is to not take it personally. You will do hundreds of projects in your lifetime. You cannot always be the hero. After enough disasters, you start to become numb to them and learn to manage tense moments more effectively. Luckily, the headache projects get quickly replaced with new projects, and looking back, all the frustrations are usually forgotten in time. Number 10, the Debbie Downers. A lot of people in architecture have not had it easy, and they are quick to remind you of their long, hard journey. Many may try to dampen your dreams of becoming an architect. It's easy to get sucked into the narcissism, but try your best not to fall down this slippery slope. Adding more negativity around the subject doesn't help anyone or anything. I challenge you not to focus on the negative, and in fact, challenge you to do the opposite. Oof. That was a rough blog post. Let's read 10 reasons why you should become an architect. Pursuing my passion for architecture was definitely the best decision I have ever made in my life. I discovered I wanted to become an architect 15 years ago, and it amazes me how after all these years I continue to be just as excited about the subject and the profession as I was before and after college. There are a million great reasons to become an architect. I could have easily made a list of 100. Looking back, I think one thing that architecture has done for me is it feeds upon several of my strengths that I have naturally going for me before I ever decided to become an architect. Here's my list of reasons why you should become an architect. Number 1, you love projects. You naturally organize everything under the phases, a beginning, a middle, and an end. You take pride in the process and thoroughly enjoy each phase of the project. You constantly go back and forth between seeing the details and the bigger picture of the project. For you, projects could materialize as simple things like making a dinner, building a website, fixing a bicycle, or even learning a new skill. Some projects go on for years, others may die a quick or slow death. A well-done, completed project brings you extreme feelings of satisfaction. The dark side to being obsessed with projects is that there are so many projects going on in your life that you can become overwhelmed. Number 2, you have preferences. Lots of them. Many people don't have any preferences about the stuff you have preferences about. Maybe you overthink things. That's okay. You can usually provide concrete evidence for your preferences. The validity of that evidence doesn't really matter as long as it makes sense to you. Number 3, you stink at math and you don't care. A lot of people say, I always wanted to become an architect, but I'm not very good at math. I can't tell you how many times people have said that to me. The reality is that most architects really aren't that great at math either. The ones that are use those skills to become engineers. Honestly, the math thing is actually the first test of becoming an architect. Everyone who shouldn't be an architect says, I stink at math and I can't do that, and stops the process right there. The aspiring successful architect says, I know I stink at math, and I don't know how I will do it, but I will figure out how to hack my way through math, calculus, physics, and structures. I'll create the best support team to help me understand and get past all those tough classes. Math is only one of many hurdles. I stink at math, and looking back, it wasn't really that hard. Number 4, you have a passion for people just as much as buildings or environments. You love learning about human beings, their cultures, and differences. A never-ending topic of fascination is, how are people different? How do they live differently? How are people affected by geography and climate? How do religion, economics, and personal beliefs change how people interact with their environments? And then you look at how architecture is affected. How do poor people live versus rich people? How do people in LA or New York City live versus the rest of America? How do Americans live versus Europeans versus Asians and the rest of the world? How do disabled people live and interact with the environment? How humans interact with the architecture is what makes it so exciting. My passion for this idea has forced me to explore all over the globe, learning about people and their environments. The majority of an architect's career is providing a service of creating a functional environments for clients with a variety of needs and wants. Having a passion for understanding about different types of people and cultures helps fuel the process. Number 5, you have a passion for space and environments just like you do for people. You're highly affected by your environments. You can see, feel, and understand the energy of an environment. You may have relationships with objects, buildings, and spaces similar to the relationships you have with people. Some environments can even elicit an emotional response from you. You may not even know why. You also have an impeccable memory for most places and environments that you have visited or experienced. Number 6, you can be both a generalist and a specialist. Architecture is such a broad subject, you could never learn it all. A professor I had once said, architecture is a reference profession. Architects shouldn't try to memorize everything. They only need to know where to go to reference the information they are looking for. All architects are generalists by default. Being a generalist is beaten into them every step of the way. It's the point of architecture school and the licensing process. They generally know a little bit about many subjects to be able to guide their support team of specialists. Being a specialist is something that comes naturally. Architects have a handful of subjects that they are near and dear to their hearts, which they have chosen to become a specialist about. Some of those subjects are sustainability, accessibility, design, teaching, detailing, rendering, building envelopes, history, engineering systems, business, politics, solar, building materials, and the list can go on forever. When I took the architect registration exam, it forced me to become a specialist in many, many subjects I had little experience, at least for the time taking the exams. Looking back, this allowed me to become an even better generalist. Number 7, you actively design everything. Design is about making decisions. Designers actively enjoy the decision-making process in all areas of their lives. Everything is designed, or shall I say, goes through a similar decision-making process. Every decision in life that presents itself provides an opportunity to practice the design process. Number 8, you are willing to sacrifice something. Everyone sacrifices something to become an architect at some point. Maybe it's a relationship, their social life, being in college for a long time, graduating with an enormous amount of student debt, or your mental and physical health. Time will always be the biggest sacrifice. It's not such a big deal if you know what you're getting into, or even really what you're sacrificing. Your loved ones will also be affected by your sacrifices, but they love you and are understanding and supportive of your decisions. Number 9, you are inspired by creating something great. You are competitive, resilient, disciplined, motivated, and you actually love to work. You look for opportunities to get ahead, and you are ready to seize them. If working all night while everyone is sleeping is what it takes, you are okay with that. The ability to hustle when needed is the most important skill an architect could have. Number 10, your teachers and mentors will be an open book on how to do it. Most architects who are further down the path than you will be completely transparent with how they did it. They want to help you succeed and can be the very best guide to becoming an architect. Showing a commitment towards becoming an architect, a passion for the subject, and a love for the profession is the key to accessing this information. Architecture is an amazing profession. My list tends to be focused inward more than other lists on the same topic. What other characteristics aside from the obvious do you think an architect should embody? Let me know. Leave me a comment on the show notes for this podcast. Take care. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Young Architect Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Until next time, keep up the great work, everyone.